Okay, Morgan, what do you have for us today, our little creepy girl?
All right. Well, before I get started, everyone needs to grab their sage.
Oh, shit.
Pour up another drink because we are digging into an Ed and Lorraine Warren case.
Oh, fuck.
You know that's just bad vibes.
It's bad vibes.
Bad juju. So this is the story of Arne Cheyenne Johnson. But the story doesn't start with Arne. It starts with a 12-year-old boy named David Glatzel. David was the brother of Arne's girlfriend, Debbie. And at the time, Arne was living with the Glatzel family. It was summertime, 1980, in Brookfield, Connecticut, when David's mother, Judy, started noticing that her son was just acting a little bit different. It started with frightening hallucinations, and at the beginning, David was very open to talking to his mom about it. He told his mother, Judy, that he would repeatedly see a man with big black eyes, a thin face with animal features, jagged teeth, pointed ears, horns, and hoofs. How do you say hoofs?
Hoofs?
Hoofs.
I think that's how you say
Hoofs.
it. Hoofs. He got some hoofs on him.
He's got hoofs from Whoville.
He's got some hoofs in his ear.
All while at the same time, Arne and Debbie were in search for a house to rent of their own. And they found what they thought was their dream house, deep in the country. It was a yellow farmhouse with olive green shutters, and it was set far back into the woods. And it was only a few miles away from Debbie's family home, where her siblings, including David, lived. It was perfect. The day they moved in, the entire Glatzel family came to help. In the master bedroom, there was a waterbed that had been left there by the tenants before them. Everyone took turns laying on it and were laughing about how fun it was, but also how weird it was, but all in all having a good time. Like, it was the first time they saw a waterbed.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But David, he wasn't about it. He was the only sibling not jumping and playing around on it. Instead, David stood from afar and watched. As he got queasy relatively easy, he tended to stay away from shit like that. So this was no surprise to the family. But later that day, David found himself alone in that room with the waterbed. And this is when things took a turn for the worse. An unseen force had pushed David onto the bed, and in a panic and fighting to get out of a constantly moving waterbed, he sees an old man on the other side of the room looking at him, wearing a torn plaid shirt and blue jeans. And while David was still struggling in an absolute frenzy, he watches as this man opens his mouth to speak when he says one word: beware.
Oh, fuck.
David kept this to himself until he saw the man later again that night. But this time, the man looked different. His skin was burned and charred.
Oh, no.
That night at dinner, as the Glatzel family plus Arne sat around the kitchen table, David told them what he had saw and how he saw the same man twice. His mother, Judy, believed him immediately. She read about the supernatural, and she's heard of the Warrens and their lectures, and she's listened to their lectures. And she was pretty well versed, and she knew that what her son saw was just a ghost. But that's all she thought it was. A ghost. A harmless ghost. After dinner that night, things took an extreme turn. Judy would later describe it as, quote, living in hell.
Oh, shit.
David had an entire personality change with violent and aggressive outbursts and the actions of an adult man, not a 12-year-old boy who was happy just a few days ago. Because of this, Debbie and Arne decided it best to stay at the Glatzel house for a bit to help out with David and put their move into their new home on hold. But that wasn't enough. David began attacking his mother, spitting on her, kicking her, hitting her. At night, he would be screaming, shouting words so vulgar that there was no way this little boy had even heard of them, and there's no way he knew what he was even saying. He would also twist and contort his body.
Oh.
David was possessed. Judy recalls at one point David pulling at invisible hands that seemed to be choking him, as well as flinching and screaming in pain from invisible knife wounds.
Oh.
During the day, David seemed to be himself, and he would talk about his visions of this dark entity that was doing this to him. An entity that David called the Beast.
The Beast.
The Beast.
Oh, I wonder what... No, I don't wonder what it looked like for... That's how he could
we know
describe
what it looked like. Jagged teeth, horns.
Yeah, but I mean,
Hooves.
like, actually, hooves.
Yeah.
Hooves.
Hooves.
Like, how it must have, like, really looked like. Did it look like the Beauty and the Beast? Or did it look like, I don't know.
Probably, like, just a mixture of, like, a
was it
human
red?
and an animal.
Was it on fire?
Maybe.
I need to ask
Maybe
him.
that's why it was charcoaled and burned.
Oh, shit. We figured it out.
Eventually, the entire household decided that they would sleep during the day so that they would be well rested enough to deal with this entity that was possessing David overnight.
Oh, yeah.
And to keep David safe. But they lasted 12 days before they called in Ed and Lorraine Warren. Immediately, the Warrens came to the Glatzel residence. They said that there were warning signs when the beast was about to take possession of David, and it went something like this. David would be happy and normal, and then out of nowhere, he would lower his head to his chest and slowly lift it to reveal a contorted face with the expression of an evil snarl.
No.
You could only see the whites of his eyes, and then he laughed, a disgusting, evil laugh.
I hate it.
I hate that.
I hate it.
Like, that's not a warning sign, Ed and Lorraine Warren. That's
not
there.
the warning. It's here.
There.
A warning would be like, ding, ding, ding. It's on its way.
Right. It's coming. Once the Warrens arrived, the rest of the family began to experience what the beast was capable of. Debbie recalled a time where she was clawed by a mysterious hand that rose from the floor and attacked her in bed at night. And she even had the claw marks to prove it.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Beast, chill out.
She has also seen the face of this entity.
Oh, shit.
Debbie said, quote, I saw a face with jagged teeth and coal black eyes. It had horns and pointed ears. Then flashing lights appeared on the wall, and I heard my mother and Arne call my name, and it disappeared.
Flashing lights on the wall?
I don't know.
Like a
That's
portal?
what she said.
That's interesting.
Like a portal to hell, maybe.
The portal to hell.
David's older brother, picked up the telephone one day, and he wasn't living at the residence. And on the other line, he heard one word over and over again. In a deep, dark voice, he heard, can you guess the word?
What?
Beware.
Oh, no.
So David's older brother, I'm pretty sure his name is Carl, he was like not about any of this. He was like, there's just something like wrong with David psychologically.
Yeah.
Like, you just need to go get him checked out. Like, he's not possessed. Like, I don't know why you guys are calling in these ghost hunters, but I'm not about it. I'm not here for it. You know, my brother is not possessed by the devil. Mm-hmm. And he was the one that this is why he got the phone call. Because he was really like.
Oh, because it was coming for him. He wasn't believing.
The entity called him. I'm sure it was David on the other line. And he just said over and over again, beware.
Hell, I don't know, after the Gatlinburg story from the last creepy account.
Maybe it was the ghost, the devil himself. And then shit got destructive. Plates would levitate, only to be thrown down and shattered. Rocking chairs were flown through the air. Books were flying off the shelves. Lorraine Warren recalls David's toy dinosaur at one point moving on the ground on its own.
Isn't the toy dinosaur like a really big symbol in this?
Yeah, it was like a lot of the movie was about the toy dinosaur.
Guys, I don't know if you guys, sorry to interrupt you, but I don't know if you guys remember my story about this Conjuring.
So it wasn't this one.
Okay. Is it
It was the one with like the underground caves, right? With the lady.
That's
that was
the one that
fucked
I
you
came
up.
after me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this isn't the same one.
Okay, because I'm envisioning them jumping on the bed, but I was like, at what point do they go? Is this one, this is The Devil Made Me Do It?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I don't remember where it is, but I was like, maybe it did.
Yeah.
Ugh, I hate this because I envision the entire movie as you're telling this to me. I see it.
Right?
I know
Isn't it
all
crazy?
of our listeners are like, same here, bitch. We're fine.
Clothes were dumped out of drawers. Makeup was thrown on the floor. And that's where I would draw the line. I'd be like,
I just got this palette yesterday.
Like, yo, Beast, you know how fucking expensive this eyeshadow palette was? Can you not throw it and shatter it and clump it all up?
Not the Kylie palette, okay?
Not the Kylie lip kit?
No, are you kidding me? The KK Dub, Cirrus? I don't think it's KK Dub anymore.
Oh my gosh. The Warrens knew at this point that David needed to be exorcised, but is that how you say that? Exorcised.
Yeah, exorcised.
But no one ever performed a formal exorcism on David because the Bishop of Bridgeport, Connecticut declined to authorize this rite.
Okay.
A few priests from St. Joseph's Parish performed several deliverances on David, and deliverances are described by the Warrens as like lesser exorcisms.
Okay.
So they're not they're not formal exorcisms, but
they're not trying to get the entire thing out. They're just like, hey, can at least half of you leave
can your
him alone?
arm leave?
Can you just let his arm be?
But the bishop declined any priest involved in David's case to talk to the public because, quote, this is what the bishop said. When you're talking about exorcisms, you're talking about the church confronting the evil spirit, the evil one. You're talking about doing battle in the name of the church.
Isn't that what the church is here to do? Or
That's what I would think, but I don't want to get into it, but I just feel like when you believe in God, you believe in the devil.
You do.
Right.
Like, read the Bible. Y'all talk about the Bible all the time. Read it. It's in there.
Yeah.
I mean, did I sit in church for the last 24 years and miss something?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. The bishop declined formal exorcisms on David because the family wouldn't consent to psychological tests. And this caused issues because Judy, when the church told her this, she did take David to a psychiatrist. Where she said she paid $75 an hour, but the church wouldn't accept this psychiatrist's evaluation because it wasn't the type of psychological testing that they wanted done on David.
Okay, well then give me the parameters.
Right.
You told me to go do this.
And Judy, later on, she was like, all they wanted to do was stick needles in my son's brain. I wasn't going to let that happen. He got evaluated by going to a psychiatrist, and they wouldn't take it.
Stick needles? What can you learn from sticking needles in anybody's brain?
So this caused lots of controversy within this church here, for sure. Regardless, the Warrens began to perform on David, asking the beast to leave him. And at each and every point of this, from the beginning, Arne Johnson was doing everything he could to help David. He couldn't stand to see the love of his life's baby brother go through this. He fought to hold David down in bed every single night when the episode started, and he pleaded for the beast to leave David alone. And then he said one thing, the one thing that he would regret for the rest of his life. Arne said to the demon possessing the 12-year-old David, "Come into me, I'll fight you. Come into me, leave David alone, take me." I hated even saying that out loud.
I hate that you even said that. She didn't mean it.
I'm just
It was a quote.
Playing.
It was a quote.
After that night, David seemed better. He was getting back to himself. He was still odd. He was still traumatized, but he was better. Shortly after, Debbie and Arne headed back to the house that they never got to move into, the one with the waterbed. They stood inside, looking out the window together, when Arne says, "There he is, the beast. There he is." Debbie watched as her boyfriend began growling and staring straight out the window, looking at nothing. And she knew exactly what the fuck was happening.
Oh my God.
She slapped her boyfriend across the face, but Arne gave absolutely no reaction, not even a flinch. So she slapped him again, and this time he snapped out of it. Debbie, looking at him, sobbing her eyes out, says, "He has you now." To which Arne replied, "Oh my God, oh no."
Literally, oh my God.
Yeah. They moved into their rented home after months of staying at the Glatzel residence to watch over David. Over the next few months, she watched as Arne showed signs of possession. One night, Arne got up in the middle of the night, waking Debbie up. After she asked what he was doing, he stared straight at her and yelled, "Go to bed." Oh. Debbie continued to lay there quietly as she watched Arne walk over to the dresser, start hitting it, and yell a couple things about hell.
I mean, like, literally stop. That was a $750 dresser.
Right. Yeah.
What the hell?
Weeks later, the entire Glatzel family went to Mass, and Arne attended with them. During the middle of Mass, Arne shouted, "Son of a bitch, I want to get out of here." Oh. And stormed out of the church.
Well, at least he didn't catch on
fire.
And
he's been going to church his whole life.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm out of here. Debbie watched as he progressively got worse. And from afar, the Warrens watched too. Lorraine could see it in her head, the beast overtaking Arne Johnson's body and mine. And the day he showed the strongest sign of possession was when Debbie heard two distinctly different voices come out of her boyfriend Arnie's mouth at the same time. Ugh. Debbie knew that the beast had captured her 19-year-old boyfriend Arne Johnson. So but this was also the same day that Alan Bono died, Who is Alan Bono?
Who's Alan Bono?
Exactly. Let's rewind. Let's rewind back to when the Glatzel family was full of love and happiness, when Debbie and Arne were swooning over each other, and when David was a normal 12-year-old boy. Let's rewind.
We can't find our audio for that, so we just implemented that with our mouths.
When Arne Johnson was 16 years old, he met Miss Debbie Glatzel, and it was love at first sight. He immediately dropped out of high school and was always searching for odd jobs here and there just to help make ends meet. At this time, Debbie was working as a pantry maid at the Holiday Inn in Bridgeport, and she actually was living with Arne and his mother, Mary, just to be closer to her job. But Arnie's mother became ill. Debbie, who was super close with her, quit her job as a pantry maid to help Mary with Arnie's younger siblings. They were really tight. This is when Arne and Debbie kind of became like a makeshift married couple, taking care of children and his mother, Arne also providing for the family. And it really created a tight bond between the two. But as typical young adults, that only lasts for so long, and they wanted to enjoy their lives. So when Mary felt better and became healthy again, the two went off on their own, but quickly just ended up living with Debbie's family. Arne and Debbie met Alan Bono a year prior to this all, 1979, when Alan had asked Debbie to come work at a kennel that he owned. Alan was not experienced with dogs and was only in it for the money, but nurturing and loving Debbie, who was always there to take care of everyone, wanted nothing more than to care for these pups. So Debbie was responsible for the dogs' well-being, making sure that they were fed and exercised and hydrated, while Alan sat around, collected the check, and drank booze.
Oh.
Over and over again.
Thanks.
Arne would help Debbie out a lot at the kennel and created a good friendship with Alan. The three of them ended up being BFFs. And when the two would talk about their future, wanting to live out on their own, Alan offered up one of his rental properties, the yellow farmhouse with the olive green shutters that was tucked back into the woods. Of course, we know how that story went. The perfect house sat empty for months as a demon took over the life of Debbie's 12-year-old brother.
Right.
So let's go back to where we were. The day Debbie heard two distinct voices come from Arnie's mouth at the same time. On February 16th, 1981, Arne had called in sick to work, and he actually joined Debbie at the kennel along with his sister, Wanda, and Debbie's 9-year-old cousin, Mary. The group, including Alan, headed to a local bar and grill for some lunch, where Alan generously paid for the entire group's meal because they were all helping out at the kennel.
Yeah.
The group headed back to the kennel while Alan decided to stay at the bar and drink. When Alan returned back to the kennel, he was trashed. And when he drank, he was a mean drunk.
Oh.
Debbie knew this and was anticipating trouble. So she was pushing Wanda and her 9-year-old cousin Mary to leave for a bit and just like go get some pizza, go get ice cream, go do whatever. And they did. And Debbie was right. But the girls quickly returned back to the kennel where they found a drunk and agitated Alan getting into it with Debbie and Arne. Debbie was trying to push everyone out of the room, begging for the girls to leave before an altercation broke out when Alan grabbed her 9-year-old cousin by the arm and refused to let go. Arne then got involved and began yelling at Alan to release Mary now. The two verbally fought for a few minutes when Alan released Mary and she bolted for the car running as fast as she could. At this point, Alan and Arne are getting into it, with Debbie in between trying to defuse the situation. Wanda was forcefully holding her brother Arne back from beating Alan's ass when Arne began growling.
Oh, fuck.
He ripped himself off of his sister, pulled out a 5-inch pocket knife, charged at Alan Bono, and stabbed him 5 times in the chest, ripping the knife up from his stomach to his heart. Arne had came to and realized what he had done. The girls were screaming, the police were called, and Alan was alive but on the ground bleeding out. Arne took off running on foot until he was found by police hours later and 2 miles from the site that he stabbed his friend. He was then arrested, charged with first-degree manslaughter, and held at the Bridgeport Correctional Center with a bail set to $125,000.
What?
The murder, so Alan Bono eventually died in the hospital hours later. And the murder of Alan Bono was actually the first unlawful killing in the history of Brookfield, Connecticut. It was the first murder.
Oh, wow. Maybe that's why they took it so serious, because I was over here thinking, like, if this was a situation where it was Logan and I and someone grabbed my little sister,
Yeah.
Logan would beat their ass.
Like, there's definitely an argument for self-defense.
Yeah, I don't mean to, try to get anybody. I mean, this is the second time I'm trying to get people away with murder, but in the last few days. But
changes the podcast name to How to Get Away with Murder. Not trademark, because it's already trademarked.
Yeah. But basically, I would have just been like, hey, Wanda, what was the other one's name?
Mary was the 9-year-old.
Mary, Wanda, Debbie, listen, I know I just killed this guy in front of all of us, but...
Ignore the growling part of me also.
Yeah,
that wasn't me.
That wasn't me. That was the devil that's inside of me. But what I'm saying is like, I was just trying to save you. We'll tell police that, because that's the truth. But instead he runs. Don't run.
Right. Yeah, he ran. I think he probably scared the shit out of himself.
I mean, yeah, because he didn't even know it was him that did that.
He didn't
wasn't
even
him.
realize. When trial rolled around in October of 1981, this case caused a media blitz, especially when Arne Johnson stood in front of the courtroom and said, "The devil made me do it."
Oh, I got chills.
Arne Johnson and his lawyer, Martin Manila, submitted a plea of not guilty by virtue of possession, creating the first known court case in the United States where the defense fought to prove innocence based on demonic possession and denial of personal responsibility for the crime. Of course, never hearing such a thing ever in a courthouse wall, the judge on Arne's case, Robert Callahan, almost immediately rejected this defense, arguing that there's no such defense could ever exist in a court of law due to the lack of evidence, and that it would be, quote, irrelative and unscientific to allow such a related testimony.
But we were all going for the Salem witch trials.
Right.
So
there's evidence in that, apparently.
Yeah, that it was used in court then.
Yeah. So the defense was like, we aren't lying, but it was worth a shot. They then chose to argue self-defense.
Yeah.
And because they switched their argument, the jury was not legally allowed to consider demonic possession as a viable explanation for Arne killing Alan. On November 24th, 1981, after 15 hours of jury deliberation over a course of 3 days, Arne Johnson was convicted of first-degree manslaughter and sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison. Arne was released on good behavior in 1986 after only 5 years.
Wow.
I bet they were like, I'll tell you why, because I'll just keep going. While behind bars, Arne married the love of his life, Debbie, who says recently that Arne's biggest mistake was challenging the beast that possessed her younger brother. She says, quote, "You never take that step. You never challenge the devil." During his time behind bars, writer Gerald Brittle developed a book with the help of Lorraine Warren titled The Devil in Connecticut. And on top of that, the trial was turned into a television movie called The Demon Murder Case. So this is why I think that he got 5 years. I think that it got so popular with the book and the show that people were probably like, oh, fuck, like, was this guy possessed? Like,
right, and he, like,
because they didn't know all the story with David and, like, for the past year
and
with the
church
Warrens
had been hiding it,
and the
not
church.
Talking it. Yeah.
Right. So, like, they had no idea about any of this. David Glatzel's brother, Carl, the one who received the phone call from the beast, was not having any of this. He sued Gerald, and I keep saying that name wrong.
Let me see it.
Gerald.
I can't see it. Point it at me.
Oh, right here.
Gerald?
Yeah. I don't know why I'm saying Gerald.
Or is it Gerard?
I don't know. He sued Gerald and the Warrens for the book, claiming that it violated his right to privacy. He also said that it was an intentional affliction of emotional distress. And he also claimed the story was a giant hoax created by the Warrens who took advantage of his brother's mental health for money. But even his own mother and sister disagreed with him on that. The profits from the book were promised to be shared with the Glatzel family. They were promised that if they publicized their story of their 12-year-old son, they would be millionaires. But the Glatzel family only received a check for $2,000. In 2007, Carl and David filed another lawsuit against Gerald and the Warrens for unspecified financial damages.
Yeah, because I bet they couldn't do anything.
Right. Before I wrap up, I want to point out a couple interesting points I didn't mention in this story. During one of the Warren-guided exorcisms while the beast had possessed over David, the beast laughed and actually predicted the murder that Arne would later find true. Yeah. Also, months after the murder, Lorraine Warren, who was not involved, before the murder, Lorraine Warren, who was not involved with the family at the time, called the Brookfield police and warned them that there was a possibility of danger in the Glatzel household. And it was also Lorraine Warren who called the same police department the day after the murder to tell them that Arne Johnson was possessed and something bad was about to happen. And it already did the day after.
I have chills on my forehead.
On my forehead.
I have forehead chills.
Forehead chills. Arne and Debbie Johnson went on to have 2 children and fully backed up the accounts that the Warrens had publicized. In later years, they both were working alongside a movie that was in production based on the events. Unfortunately, Debbie passed before the movie was released. The movie was The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. And that is my segment on Arne Johnson.
I loved it.
Wasn't it good?
It's so good. I love it. I love it dark.
I know.
And that one's like really all the things I like in one.
Yeah, true crime, court. Yeah, you've been digging it.
Demonic possessions, all the things.
I just can't even believe that.
Me either. And like
he didn't know he did it.
Every time.
And he was fighting for himself
and like the family was advocating beforehand about the fact that there was a demon being passed around like COVID in their house.
So I wonder if it was Alan's house that originally possessed David in the waterbed.
Yeah, I think
that
it was.
old man.
Yeah, there was something in that house.
And maybe that's why he predicted the murder of Alan, because he knew he wanted Alan dead. Whatever this demon or entity was, Alan owned the house and they hated Alan. He was a drunk. He was a piece of shit.
Yeah. I bet he was awful to the spirits.
Yep.
Which, who wants to be nice to a demonic spirit? But,
right.
Every time we tell us, or you tell a story, or I listen to stories about the Warrens, I just have different feelings and vibes.
There's so much controversy.
There's so much. And I never understood it at first, like before we did the podcast.
Yeah.
But then whenever we discuss like these cases, like I understand. But then on the flip side of it, of course, there's going to be like a lot of backlash about a psychic ghost hunting couple.
Right.
Because that's just not taboo.
Yeah.
And especially back then. So I'm sure everybody was out to just like call them fake and like whatever. And so they were having to do shit to, keep
But they really
safe.
also publicize everyone's deepest and darkest secrets for their own personal gain.
Right.
Like they did. Like they promised them millions of dollars. And you're telling me the book and the TV show only made $2,000 to give to them? I don't believe that for 1 second.
Yeah, they straight up were hustlers.
Yeah.
They were sleazy business people. But I guess they really would help these families. But the difference is, okay, here's my thought. Now, if you actually were to have helped them, like if you actually were to have been able to do something with this case, then you know what? Like, I don't want to say like all that money should have gone to Ed and Lorraine, but like it would have been a 70-30 split if they actually like solved it, but they didn't. So it should have been 70-30 with the family getting the majority of the proceeds.
Right.
Because they just were telling the story of what happened. They were only there for what,
and
half day?
Who gets all the money from the Conjuring series? Like, did they sell their stories to whoever creates them? Who is it? HBO? No, it's not.
Is it Warner Brothers?
Warner Brothers?
I don't remember.
Whoever did they sell their stories for one giant chunk of change, or is it like a movie by movie?
I think it's based off the books that they wrote.
Okay.
I think they're all based off of the books that were written by Ed and Lorraine.
Like, because those families are still
stories.
alive.
Yeah.
From all of those stories. So, like, are they getting money from the movies?
Like,
the billion-dollar profitable movies?
The movies that break the theater.
Yeah.
Like, literally every time. I mean, I love the Conjuring series.
I love the Conjuring series.
I love the Conjuring series. I really do enjoy the Conjuring The Conjuring series. It's probably my favorite. It's one of the easier dark ones for me to watch.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I guess because they just do such a great job, and they are jump scary, but they're not so bad that I like want to.
You can't watch them.
Yeah, I can't.
The last one was really fucked up.
Well, I can't even talk about that one because I think it ruined it for all of them now.
Yeah.
Logan wanted to watch the first Conjuring the other day, and I was like, honestly, I don't think I can handle it.
First Conjuring was the best.
It was so good. I remember when I watched it. I think I probably talked about it on here years ago.
For sure.
About whenever I was driving home from it and all of the lights on the street turned off on the entire road, and I was like,
yeah, we definitely talked about it because remember I told the story that my brother I went with him because it was rated R. I wasn't
Yeah.
18. Him and Sarah I went with.
Yeah.
And they left in the morning and they turned all the clocks. So whatever
Yes.
the time was, 3:07 or something.
Yeah.
And I was home alone. My parents were out of town that weekend. It was so fucking scary.
That is so bad. That's so mean. Why would they do that?
I know.
That's some shit we would do, though. I'm not going to lie.
I know. I'd probably do it to my kids.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah, probably.
Anyway, that's all I got.